Hello, I'm Sam Beiser, and I'm back again with you from my home on top of Afton Mountain in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Today we're going to be doing part 3, our conclusion to the Save Your Life collection. Now, I didn't even know there was going to be a part 3 when I started all this. I thought we were finished until I got letters and more phone calls, and I realized we weren't finished. We had another class to hold with you. And what it is we presented Richard's program to you. I gave you a 600-page manual, but there's still more. And the problem is you don't have Dr. Scholl's out there with you at home, so you try things that I thought were totally clear, and you go, I guess they're not so clear. So we need to help you more. And it's 10 months of your letters and calls that have made this possible. Also, I've learned a lot from really hundreds of phone calls with Richard, and I want to pass a lot of that on to you this afternoon. Now, in the first section, we covered, the basic programs for a lot of diseases. And then in February, it was a few months later, we filmed a lot of detail, on hydrotherapy, how to do it. It's kind of involved the cold sheet treatment, the hot and cold showers. And because I didn't think you were going to do it if you didn't see it done. Reading about it wasn't enough. Talking about it wasn't enough. Another thing that came up that we also handled in our February filming was people weren't making their own tinctures. They just wanted to order them. They didn't want to do any thinking, and they wrote letters to me and said, I don't have the time, I'm a busy person. And I realized that they didn't understand how easy it was. They'd blown this up in their head. So we spent a whole day in the kitchen covering how to make it. And it was in the kitchen because that's where you're going to do it, in your own kitchen. And you can make things more powerful than anything you can buy. And I wanted you to understand that. But then there's even more questions I was hit with over the months. So we brought it all together for you today and prepped ourselves so that when you finish this series, it's the best we can do to you getting results without having Dr. Scholl's in your neighborhood to consult with. And so let's now begin and introduce and welcome back Dr. Richard Scholl's.
Thanks,
Glad
Sam.
to see you, Richard.
Thanks.
Good to have you here.
Great to be back.
You ready for today?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, one of the things that's hard on me and a joy for you is that I'm here on the mountain and in town, and I don't get this feedback. I guess I feel starved because we work so hard to put this out, and nobody writes to me. They, I guess, go to see you, and also you're just around the world. You've been, in the Caribbean. You've been up in Alaska. Every time I try to get you, you're not there.
Yeah.
But you are in the front lines, so you do hear the stories, that keep me excited, and that's why we did all this.
Let me tell you, Sam, in the last year, since I was here last year this time, and we were doing the beginning of these videos, I have traveled all over the world. I've been all over Europe. I've been in the Caribbean, Alaska, Hawaii, Wisconsin, Minnesota, you name it, and I've been there. And I have met, again, thousands of people who have used the information.
What's happening with it?
Oh, they're getting well. People are getting well, healing themselves of incurable diseases. You name the cancers, the neurological disorders, all types of terminal or so-called incurable diseases, and people are getting well from them.
It's really happening.
Absolutely. It's happening everywhere, and we have thousands of letters of people that are healing themselves using the information and the programs on these tapes.
I know you were telling me about some fellow up in Alaska. You were lecturing way up there, and he just comes to the podium or something.
When I was last speaking up in Alaska, a man who had been in the hospital with Parkinson's disease, who was basically dying from the disease, his daughter brought to him our videotapes, the videotapes. At first he thought we were quacks, but then he thought, well, what have I got to lose?
That's right.
That man got so well, he said he recovered 75%. And when I saw him, he got out of the hospital. He couldn't walk. He was now walking. He walked to come and see me where I was lecturing, shook my hand, and I didn't notice any Parkinson's disease at all with him.
That is something.
And this is happening everywhere. I even got some letters here. Here's a letter from a lady in Missouri. I mean, she was what I call the walking dead. This lady was so far gone, it's amazing that she was alive. Now, we've had cholesterol levels that were high, 500, 600, 800.
Yeah.
This lady had a 1,500 cholesterol level and a 9,000 triglycerides. She had pancreatitis 7 times. She had degenerative liver disease. She was dying. She followed our program in only a few months, dropped her cholesterol level to 150, and absolutely got well. And she says right here, thank you, Sam and Dr. Scholl. You literally saved my life.
You know, what was so
sent us
exciting to
pictures.
me is she was one of the few who actually write to me and let me know they're getting cured.
Yeah.
And I talked to her twice, and it was just a great joy.
Yeah.
Because she went through the cure. She told me how the tumors came out, how she shrieked, and her husband was shocked. She told me that cholesterol came from a damaged liver, because I wondered, how does anybody get a 1500 cholesterol? And it happened because the liver was just pumping that stuff out. And the liver advice we've given them on the tapes, it's cured.
Her life was saved, Sam. Here's another letter from a lady in Minnesota. She was ready to be gutted by the medical doctors. She had had problems for 2 years with her reproductive organs. They'd seen abnormal cell growth in there. I mean, that's cancer. And they had also, every pap smear came back bad. She took our advice, followed our program for 1 week, Sam. That's all she did. Just 1 week. Went back to the hospital. They could not find one atypical cell and gave her a clean bill of health. And she just wrote us a letter and said she's a follower now. Here's a letter from a guy from Tennessee. This is really great because he didn't want to start the programs first himself, but his neighbor had diabetes, so he got his neighbor's diabetic sugar level from 420 back to normal in a month to 120.
You know what? You sent me that letter. I called the man. It's true.
Why not use your neighbor as a guinea pig first if you're afraid to do these programs? Then he went on the program himself, healed himself of melanoma, skin cancer, and then healed his dad of skin cancer. Here's a letter from a man in Texas. I have 3 herniated discs in my lower back and feel better after 3 days on this program than I have in 15 years of pain.
All kinds of things happening.
You know, I had a man come to my, people come to California to track me down.
You make an appointment?
Oh, no, because I'm retired. I don't have a practice anymore.
So they just figure you're somewhere in Santa Monica, so they just fly.
They stalk. I have professional stalkers out there after me, and they come and find me, and they bring photos of their diseases before and after. They bring jars filled with tumors and parasites. Well, not to me, because my patients did that, but to my wife, to my friends. Yeah, they find it a little bit scary. In fact, at the pharmacy, people come there, and if they say that if they see anybody bringing in a jar, they all run and hide.
Right?
They don't want to see it. I had a man come all the way from Florida just to show me photos of numerous cancerous malignant tumors that he pulled out of his prostate.
Using a poultices and all, just
that's
like
right, and pulled out of his lower abdomen. So, Sam, have no doubts about it. People around this country, even in Europe, even around the world, we've had some from the Middle East and Turkey, people are healing themselves.
So it's not theory, it's
of
happening.
So-called incurable diseases.
So in other words, people can listen to these tapes, the manual, and they can get the same cures that you were getting at your underground clinic.
Absolutely, no doubt about it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, you got this whole other bunch that want to do more. They're not healing themselves like they think they could have watching the tape, and we can help them. Okay, so what are some of the things that the people who aren't in this incredible category need to do to get in that category of total cures?
Sam, remember Dr. Christopher? He used to talk about the people that could not get well, the incurables. He said there were 3 types of incurable patients. And the number one type he talked about were people who wouldn't follow the programs. And that's what we have to talk about here for a minute.
So you're saying it isn't that the programs aren't working that you've designed, we put on the tapes?
People won't follow them. But the first category is people that won't do them at all.
Well, wait a minute. They don't do them, they buy the tapes, presumably they listen, they read, and then a big nothing?
You don't know how many letters I get from people who get the videos, that get the booklet, that get all our information, even make the herbal formulas themselves, and then present it all to their medical doctor to see what the medical doctor thinks about this.
Oh, they really think he's going to bless them?
You know, it's ridiculous to think that a medical doctor could give you any information about herbs and natural healing programs any more than an electrician can tell you about how to fix your toilet. They're totally untrained in this. This is the first thing that people have to understand. Medical doctors have no training in nutrition, no training in herbology,
so what do they tell people?
No training in natural healing.
You do it, I'll monitor it?
No, they tell people don't do it, don't touch it. I wouldn't get near that. The doctors also and the hospital aren't going to make any money off of this, and they don't want the patients doing it, or they scare them. They say, well, you can go ahead and do this, but I won't be responsible for the results. So the first group of people...
So that's the biggest group?
Oh, the biggest group. They're so fearful they won't even begin the programs. And you know, all the programs that we talk about in this videotape work, but if you don't use them, they won't help you. And then part of that group are people that say, well, I'm going to do it, but I'll wait for my summer vacation. Or
Why
I'll
do they
take
say
some
that?
time.
They're scared of the program?
They're scared of the programs, and they think that they can't do the program while they're carrying on with their normal life, and they can. I have many people that do the incurable programs and still hold down a job.
Well, a lot of your people were in, they were making motion pictures.
Absolutely.
That's more than a job.
Absolutely. We're talking 18 hours a day of work and an 18-hour-a-day program. The bottom line, you take your program to work with you, and you do it. It becomes your life. If people don't start this program, they won't have to worry about planning out when they're going to do it. They just need to plan out their funeral.
I remember you telling me once, it cracked me up, that you would tell the people that it wouldn't surprise me if your wife called and said you passed on last night.
Absolutely.
And it took things like that to get them off the...
Oh, absolutely. You know, many people, they're not going to get help because they won't get started, and we need to encourage people as much as we possibly can. Get started on these programs.
So they just build this thing up so big in their head that they put it off. And as they put it off, they get sicker.
That's right. They won't do it, and they'll get sick, and they'll die.
Okay. What's the second biggest reason why it's a no-go and nothing happens?
The second reason is people who do part of the program.
So they take one step, but they won't take 2 or 3 or 4.
This is not a Chinese restaurant where you order one from column A and one from column B. The Incurables program that we've talked about in this video collection, you need to do every part. It's so important. Many people do not get well because they skip the one part they didn't want to do.
Richard, isn't a lot of stuff for people to do? I mean, I would do that myself. You give me 20 things to do, I'll do 2 of them.
This program has taken me years to develop in the clinic. Every part of it is extremely important. You skip a part, I can't be responsible for what happens. Listen to this letter. Here's a man who removed skin cancer off his body, but the first time he did it, he didn't get well. Then he says, the second time I did the incurables, I used the garlic and the hot and cold showers. Can you believe I left the 2 most important parts out the first time? He got well. He left 2 parts out of it, he got well. I got a call from a lady whose husband had alateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease. He followed 2/3 of the Incurables program, and he did not do the detoxification and cleansing part, and she said she was thrilled that he was 2/3 recovered from alateral sclerosis. Do 2/3 of the program, you might not get well at all, but he got 2/3 better. You do the whole program, you will get well.
So pick and choose isn't the way to go when you're that sick.
As I said, this is not a Chinese restaurant menu.
Okay, thank you. Now, okay, you said people skip, they don't do it all, they make their own decisions. They become their own herbalist, okay? What's the things they skip the most on this program?
One thing that amazes me is it's the most important part of the program, which is bowel cleansing. They either don't do it at all or they do it half-baked. They don't do it.
It's so easy. Why would they skip that part of it?
30, 40 years of constipation. I mean, constipation on a physical level affects people emotionally, and this is all part of letting go. And I'm amazed at the stacks of letters that we get from people who haven't done the bowel cleansing effectively.
What makes them back off?
Fear. The first thing is we talked about the intestinal corrective formula #1.
Yeah.
People think that there's a limit to the amount they can take of that formula to get their bowel work. Some people think it's 4 or 5, some 8. I don't care if you have to take 8,243. You continue increasing that formula by 1 capsule every day until your bowel works.
They think there's a certain number. When they hit the number, the thing detonates.
You name the number.
No more bowel,
yeah,
right?
you name the number, I've got it. Oh, I'm up to 13, so I quit. It doesn't work for me. I took 8. I quit. It didn't work for me. I was scared to go any further. So the first step is people aren't getting their bowels open, and don't bother to go any further on the Incurables program or any health program.
Important.
It's the first step. The first step of getting well. And then the second part of the bowel formula is using the formula that we've given people to draw the old material out of their bowel. You know, that formula #1 just gets the bowel going. But how are we going to get rid of that 30?
It just opens a turnpike.
That's right. But we got to get rid of 30 or 40 or 50 years of constipation, degenerative living, eating habits, whatever. And that's where the formula 2 comes in. Some people do the formula 1 and the #2, and they think that's it. They think they're going to take 40 years of their life, live a horrible lifestyle, be sick physically, emotionally, and spiritually, have a congested bowel, be constipated, and fix it in 2 weeks. It doesn't work that way.
But they believe that.
They believe that. So people need to do the bowel cleansing over and over again.
What do you mean over and over?
Once every
week?
2 months. 6
Okay.
times a year. Start
You mean
again.
you can just schedule it on the calendar?
Absolutely. Until your inner voice tells you that bowel is clean and your digestive system is working. We even get calls from people and letters from people saying they look at the intestinal formula number 2 and it's black, and isn't that radical? I'll tell you what's radical. A colostomy bag is radical. Brain surgery is radical. Sawing your ribs in half is radical. Taking herbs, what grows out here, this is not radical. This is nature. This is what God has provided for us. People have to get that straight. If you want to see radical, go to a hospital.
Now, I remember you telling me, like with leg ulcers, that you could never cure them, even with everything you knew, until you got that bowel working.
Nothing will heal dysfunctional or diseased parts of the body until your digestion, your assimilation, and your elimination organs are functioning, and until the bowel is functioning and clean.
I guess maybe it just doesn't seem dramatic enough for people. It's just the bowel.
Yeah, well, they'll be very disappointed when they don't get well. This is the first step of the program, and it has to be done, and it has to be done thoroughly.
Now, are any common mistakes that we haven't covered on it? You know, they don't take it, they don't repeat it, they don't take enough of it. The formula number 2. Oh, I know, because my wife did this herself. You would take a big quantity once a day instead of a smaller dose spread out.
Yes.
We called you, and it was a great explanation I think
That's
they
right.
need to hear.
It's very important to spread it out. The formula number 2 needs to be in your bowel every 3 hours. It needs to go in there and keep coating, and then the old keeps getting removed. You can't swallow all your pills, all your juices. That would be like, well, I don't want to eat 3 meals a day, so I'll eat 3 meals for breakfast, and then I don't have to eat the rest of the day. It doesn't work that way. Timing of the herbal routines is very important, especially with the bowel cleansing. The formula number 2 needs to go in 5 or 6 times a day. There's a reason, there's a method for all of this that I'm explaining, and why it has to be done that way.
Okay. And what about in a person like me, where most people, their colon's real sluggish? In mine, it just gets too irritable. Frankly, I can't take that number 1. It rips me up even in small quantities.
That's
I gotta
right.
back off.
This is the one exception to this whole bowel cleansing, and it's what I call the itis group. Diverticulitis, colitis, spastic bowel problems, Crohn's disease. This is a small percentage of the population. It's only about 1 or 2%, but these people do not need Formula A. These people, the first formula,
Right.
These people already have an overactive bowel, a bowel that's
Right.
irritated. They need to be soothed. These people skip formula number 1 and go on to formula number 2 and just used formula number 2.
How much should I use of it a day?
They start out with the same dosage, 5 to 6 times a day,
Teaspoon.
a heaping teaspoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And people say, oh gosh, it's black. It doesn't taste weird. You mix it in juice. I mean, come on. We're talking about getting rid of years of problems. We've had people with coins, old coins, come out of there.
You're kidding.
Oh, no. You know, I mean, if someone's a coin collector listening to this, they might want to pass it out to their friends. They might get a rare find. I mean, we have people with glass coming out of their bowels. So we have all sorts of things coming out. I mean, you need to use these programs to get well.
Okay. So that's the number 1 that they prefer to look the other way on. The next one, I know what it is, because myself, I didn't want to try it. I talked to you probably more than anybody else this year, and
Yeah.
there's no way I was going to do it, was the hot and cold showers. I
Absolutely.
thought, well, I don't want to get up, have a hot shower, and then turn it to ice and suffer for nothing, right?
Well,
So I skipped it, even though I didn't have a disease,
Yeah.
so I know they're not doing it.
That's right. Everybody seems to really balk about getting in a cold shower. And we even heard it from Mr. Ritchie here in his letter to us. His skin cancer did not go away. His malignant melanoma did not go away until he put the hot and cold showers back into the Incurables program. He had removed the hot and cold showers, and his skin cancer got better, but it never went away. It wasn't until he got the full hot and cold shower routine in there.
I can tell you, when I tried it, it's great.
Yeah.
You're awake long before you ever start coughing.
It's life-changing. The most important thing, you know, we can take all the nutrition into our body and all the good juices, but unless that blood gets to the area of our body that's ill, we're not going to get better. Unless that beta-carotene from that carrot juice gets to our liver or our bowel or our knee or wherever we have the problem, we are not going to have a recovery. And the best fastest, most powerful, and efficient way to move the blood around the body is hot and cold hydrotherapy.
Yeah, I remember in a phone call you told me it's even more powerful than exercise.
Absolutely. There's nothing that will move the blood through your body better than hot and cold water. And you'll hear the screams come out of your bathroom when you do it the first time.
You can't stand still when you do it.
That's right. But anybody who's watching this video, listen to my voice right now. It might be a little difficult the first or second time you do it, but you will notice a greater difference from the hot and cold shower routine immediately than anything else in this program.
Yeah, they take the herbs, they skip this.
They skip the hot and cold.
I tried your herbs, and this one I thought, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
Now, I know also from my own experience what they're doing wrong. They have it hot because that feels great.
Yeah.
Then they have it a little cool. I'm doing what Schultz says. And then they go back to the hot, which they really want.
Yeah.
No, they got to get it real cold.
I don't care if you live in Alaska. You turn that hot knob all the way off. It's a full cold blast.
So
now
they're supposed to go like this and maybe gasp for air.
And scream. Try screaming. I mean, if anybody looks back at the videos, we do the hot and cold showers. You'll hear some noises coming out of the shower.
Now, I've had some letters from people where they go, I'm elderly, I've got a heart condition. Is this thing going to give me a heart attack or burn my skin or whatever?
Nowhere in this video program yet have we said for people to throw away their common sense and be stupid. I mean, let's get real here. People need to use their common sense. If they're older, they have heart disease, start out easy. Go warm, cool for a week and see how that feels. And then the next week, a little bit hotter and a little bit colder. In 30 days, they'll be on full hot and cold and they'll feel better than they felt in years. Those varicose veins will go away. Their heart will be beating more steady. That heart disease will go away.
Now, Richard, one of the things I know they're not doing right is they're not getting it hot enough and they're not getting it cold enough. And sometimes it's not even what they want. You can't.
Yeah,
okay, your heating, cooling system, it won't. And it doesn't have that shock healing feeling to you.
Absolutely. There's a couple ways to get around that. And you can increase cold. If you need to increase cold, you can use ice. Anybody can get...
What do you do?
You can make ice in your freezer, in your refrigerator. You can also buy bags of ice. You can fill your bathtub up with ice, add as little of water as you need, and get right in the whole bathtub.
Okay, so you get in the bathtub, and then, what, you're in a few minutes, and then you jump in,
yes,
and the shower's hot, and you run back to that?
Absolutely. So if you have a bathtub and a shower, you can do that routine. Or you can do it the opposite way. If you have a nice cold shower, but your water doesn't get very hot, you can fill a bathtub with the water as hot as you can get it, and then take those big chili pots out of the cupboards and fill them with water and get a lot of boiling water going. This is what they did in the old days.
Okay.
Pour it in that bathtub, and you'll get it as hot as you can stand it.
Now, Richard, a lot of people live in apartments or the way their houses are. They don't have a bath.
Yeah.
Even some nicer houses just have showers these days. What do you do?
You can still do it in a localized area. Pick the area of your body that you want to do the hot and cold treatment on. And you can use hot packs, you can use ice packs. You can even buy at drugstores cold packs that you keep in your refrigerator. You can buy ones that you push a button and they get hot because of a chemical reaction in them. There's a lot of ways people need to use their imagination, but get the hot and cold on that area of the body. I've even been in motels where I've had to go to the ice machine and fill 5 or 10 ice buckets with ice and use that to take a cold bath. But do the hydrotherapy.
Yeah, I found it is good on a trip. And also it takes a lot of the stress out of the trip. And you might be sick and have to take a trip. It just makes it better.
No doubt about that.
Okay. Another area of the hot and cold was pointed out to me. You already knew it. But when I talked to that woman with the high cholesterol, when she was doing the hot and cold showers, she cried. She wept the first 2 times she did it.
Yeah.
So it seems to be some kind of emotional release
thing
going on.
You can tell your psychotherapist to take a vacation. I'm telling you, it's one of the most powerful emotional releases.
But how can it do that? It's just hot and cold.
Get in the shower. I mean, it's amazing. It's such a flush of blood in your body that it affects you dramatically, emotionally.
So this is not uncommon.
No, and so
outbursts of memories.
Feel free when you're in there to, most people feel free to sing in the shower. What's wrong with a few tears, a little yelling, a little screaming? See what comes out. If you can stand in a fully hot and a fully cold shower and not utter a squeak, I'm very worried about you.
Okay. So, do people come to you and say, I just broke down and cried, or I feel just more sense of peace. It's more than a shower.
Oh yeah, I've had hundreds of people come to me over the years and tell me it was better than 10 years with their psychiatrist and all the drugs they ever took, just the hot and cold shower routines. You know, it's hard to keep your crystallization, your emotional constipation when you get in a hot and cold shower.
It's hard to keep you cool.
It's hard to keep you cool.
Okay. Now, you told me that another reason people don't do it is they say, I'm allergic. I took this, I had a reaction. And I know that makes you boil when you hear it, right?
If I hear one more person tell me they're allergic to garlic, I will come to their house and give them a rectal injection myself. I've had it. We covered that in the beginning of the videotapes, and just let me say it briefly again. It's ridiculous. There are no allergies. There are no allergies to natural substances. Remember the story of Dr. Christopher, and someone said they were allergic to walnuts, and he said, okay, eat a little bit of a walnut every day and increase that dosage, and in time you found a wonderful food of nature that will cleanse you.
Right.
Garlic is one of the most cleansing and detoxifying of all the herbs that we know. It may be the #1. I expect that when people take garlic, especially in the dosages that we've suggested,
Right.
3-6 cloves a day,
Right.
that something will happen.
And it happens.
This is what we
Right.
want. And they go, oh, I'm having a bad reaction or an allergic reaction to garlic. It's called a cleanse. It's called a detoxification. You ought to go out and invest in a garlic farm if you find that garlic is a tool for you to use.
I mean, if it causes that much of a reaction, you better take it.
Absolutely. And this is something that we hear, allergies, allergies, allergies. It's another excuse that people use out of their fear to not get involved in this program. Remember, if you are allergic to walnuts, strawberries, garlic, whatever it may be, you have now found a food that for a particular reason will cleanse or detoxify you, and you need to stick with it. People are using this as a reason to not use the program or the formulas. This is not a good reason.
Yeah, you told me about a woman, remember last night? Every part of your program, she had a reason.
Yeah, go to the hospital, have surgery. I mean, you have to, and people say, well, I'm allergic to alfalfa. They're probably not allergic to alfalfa. They're probably allergic to the pesticides and insecticides that were on the last alfalfa they took. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
If alfalfa causes you to feel different or to break out or to have diarrhea or to have a fever or whatever, that's an herb for you to use.
Okay, so what do you want to get
cleansing.
down to for people to do? Because they're scared of these reactions, so what's the advice for them?
Don't be scared of these reactions. Drink plenty of liquids. You might slow down your process and take it and realize that you're more sensitive in this area than others. But
don't check it out.
I do not want to hear people saying they can't do the program because they're allergic to alfalfa or to walnuts or whatever it may be.
Richard, is there anything else? I mean, we covered a lot on why they won't do it.
Yes, fear. A lot of people...
Who's afraid?
Either the patient is afraid and they won't commit themselves 100%, or they're ready to do it, but their relatives are afraid, or relatives don't want to do this on their children or on their grandparents or their parents.
What do you mean, poor Uncle George, he can't take it?
Yeah, in his last days, let's, you know, have him have a good time, and we don't want to be torturing him with a hot and
Sit
cold
up
shower.
watching macaroni.
That's right.
Watching macaroni, eating macaroni,
That's right.
watching TV.
That's right, and they'll be sorry. They'll be sorry if they don't do the programs.
What's your first recommendation for making this thing a go?
The first recommendation is for anybody that has a so-called incurable disease, the Incurables program is something that has to be done 110%. You can't go into this half-cocked or half-baked. It's not going to work. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of effort physically, emotionally, and spiritually to do the program.
But how do you get that 110%?
Well, you really need to get yourself ready, and you also need to get a support group. The odds of anybody being successful on the Incurables program are very slim if they're all on their own. Even when you go swimming, they call it the buddy system. You have someone else you go swimming with. That way, if you get into trouble, you have someone to help you.
Yeah, I've always wondered about people out there on their own and their whole family thinks they're a jerk. and they're sick, they can't do it without help.
They
Physically,
need to
can't do it.
find friends, whether they hang out at health food stores or read the bulletin boards or magazines in the health food stores. They need to find other friends involved in health and find people that are willing to participate with them, encourage them, and back them up. You can do this on your own, and we do have letters from people that have been successful all by themselves.
But it's real tough.
But it's real
and
tough.
lonely.
We all need the help of another person. We even talked about that with enemas. It's much easier to do an enema if you have a friend with you. These programs are much easier, and especially we all get down. People will get down.
But how do they get the family behind them?
You need,
and involved.
There's a lot of different ways, but it's so important, believe me. I have a couple just classic examples. I had one young woman with AIDS, and while she was trying to do the program and she was showing initial signs of getting better, her dad was, oh, why should we torture her in her final days? And we all know that AIDS is a terminal disease, and we all know that she'll be dead in less than 5 years, and can't we give her pizza? He really argued that one on the telephone with me for days. Can we please give her
That was
pizza?
big with him, pizza.
I don't know why we have to torture my daughter. Well, he gave her the pizza. She's dead. Okay, the bottom line is people like that around you, when you're this ill, they will kill you. They will be nailing the nails in your coffin. You do not need that type of a person around. You need to set up a support group. Let me tell you another quick story. I was in India, and on my first trip to India in the late 70s, I was very ill. I got malaria, and I also got dengue fever, and I had a fever of over 105 degrees. The equipment I had couldn't even register higher than that. I was delirious. I was burning up. I gave myself a cold sheet treatment. But at a point, my friend who I was there with brought a nurse in to see me. The nurse sat down and she looked at me and she said, "You look horrible." And I was like, "Thank you very much for telling me that." She goes, "You have tachycardia." She goes, "You could be hurting your heart with this fever." She went on and on and on. My friend came up to me and whispered in my ear, he goes, "Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "Yeah, get her the heck out of here. When you're ill, when you're sick,
You don't need that.
You don't need that negativity. You don't need people, they're like weights around your ankles dragging you down. You don't need that."
So what do you do if you're in a family? Do you back off?
The first thing you want to do is, if you're going to undertake what we call the Incurables program, you need to have a support group, and you need people that are interested. You need to sit around together and watch the videos together.
Okay, so share the videos
share the
with
videos.
whoever's going to back you.
The letters that I get from people and the families that I have met that have been successful at healing incurable, degenerative, killer diseases using this program, the whole family sat in the living room and watched these videotapes over and over and over again. They know every word that I or you have spoken on these tapes. They have read the manual together as a group over and over again. And they don't just think, well, we're going to do the incurables and we're going to be well in 30 days. They have a plan B and they have a plan C. Sometime in this process, you might lose your ability to talk. Well, what are you doing if you're directing these people? They have to have a plan J and a plan Z.
Oh, so you can't, if you're the sick person, you can't be calling all the shots.
Hey, when you're sitting there vomiting, you can't be telling a person what to do. It can get ugly. People need to know that in the process of getting well and in the process of cleansing your body, there can be days of sickness and pain that are overwhelming. Dr. Christopher, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Stone would call this a healing crisis.
So you've got to have somebody who can think in terms of natural healing.
Absolutely.
Instead of seeing a pimple come out and go, oh my God, that's it, we're off this
There's
thing.
going to be days where just because you're tired, you don't want to carry on anymore. And you don't need a person around you going, I know, isn't life awful? Isn't this horrible? You need a person that's going to reach down, pull you up by your bootstraps, put their foot in your rear end, and keep you going on these programs. Absolutely. And without that support person or that support team, your chances of being successful on this are very limited. I mean, listen to this lady here. I'm trying the Incurables program, trying. My husband says he will help me, but he's not here during the day. Well, how can he help if he's not there? You need to get people that are going to be physically present. And he doesn't have any faith in the program. Well, forget it. Get rid of the husband. Okay, you're not going to get well with a part-time person around who doesn't believe you can be well. Find somebody else. I'd find a stranger before I'd have a husband like that in my house trying to recover from an incurable disease.
Richard, one of the things you recommend, and when I first read it, I thought this guy's a kook, but he wants it in, so we'll put it in, is where you tell people to, you know, get rid of 30% of their possessions. I thought, well, he's a new age fruitcake, but that's okay. He's a nice guy. Now, obviously, I don't think you were kidding, so explain what you meant.
I call it trashing. It's a very simple name. What I've seen is that many of us, in order to fully recover from our diseases, need to get rid of the carloads and truckloads of toxic things in our environment that make us ill and keep us ill.
What do you mean toxic? You mean old cardboard boxes of files? That's not toxic.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we can look at it in two ways. We can look at it in toxic accumulation as far as chemicals under the sink, but we can also look at toxic emotional accumulation and toxic accumulation of material possessions in your house that cause undue stress.
Well, Richard, I know it feels good to clean your house or your attic.
Yeah.
But we're talking about disease, not house cleaning.
I've had so many patients that the final straw to whether they healed themselves or not was based on emptying a room of the house that held possessions that caused them emotional stress and strain.
You have any memories of someone who died?
Absolutely.
Something like that?
I had one woman in her 40s with a malignant breast tumor, and no matter what we did, we could not get rid of that tumor. When I had patients that wouldn't respond, I would eventually visit their house and go to their house.
You knew you had to,
Oh,
right?
I knew I had to. I knew there was something that they weren't telling me that I was missing. And these would be all different things. But with this woman, she lived in a house, and one of the rooms of the house was for her child. The only problem is she had had that child 20 years ago, and it had died of a terminal disease when it was 5 years old.
And so she left it
15 years
like it
later,
was.
her husband's left her. He's not in the house anymore, and she's living in a 2-bedroom house, and one of the bedrooms in the house is her child's room, who died when it was 5. And in that room were photos and memorabilia and possessions it had and its clothes. And when she walked by that room, she used to cry. She used to
Really?
whimper. She used to hang on to it. I said, that room's got to go. She goes, it's the only memory I have of my child.
But isn't that cruel to take that away from her?
I said, your child died 15 years ago. You have no other children and no other family. When you die, the state's just going to come in this room and shovel the stuff into the garbage bin out back. Okay, let's get real. How about if we turn that room into something that's healing for you?
Okay.
And so we turned it into an art room. She put an art table in there and paints and opened up the curtains and changed everything, put new wallpaper in. 3 days after she started throwing the stuff out, she told me she had the worst pain ever in her breast. She had to hold her breast.
Oh, it had to feel terrible.
Oh, as she was
all those
taking the
pictures.
stuff to her dumpster, she was holding that breast, and it was the worst pain she ever had. A week later, she noticed a difference, and within 30 days, her breast tumor was gone.
I tell you, it almost seems unbelievable.
Well, we have stuff in our life, you know, we don't realize the power of stress and our emotions on our health. I mean, it's known today that your immune system will only work as good as how much love and how much you take care of yourself. If you're walking around every day thinking, I hate life, I'm not enjoying my life, I'm sad because of this, I'm sad because of that, your immune system isn't going to
So
take
you're saying
care
a
of
lot
you.
of this stuff just pulls people down?
Absolutely. It's another anchor. It's another weight. You know, remember the good old Dr. Christopher used to wake up in the morning, beat his chest, and so it's great to be alive. Right. And everybody had these positive affirmations.
But so you used to do this with people?
Absolutely. Not only do you have to teach them positive affirmations, but you have to get into that house and clean out that accumulation. I had one woman with incurable colitis, no amount of antispasmodic herbs from lobelia to wild yam.
You mean you did the best of what you knew, and
and she wasn't better. I
go.
went to her bedroom, and on the wall was her graduation certificate from college, magna cum laude.
How could that hurt anybody?
I said to her, I said, what's this? I just started investigating, and I said, what's this? And she said to me, oh, and she held her stomach before she started talking, and she goes, I hated college. I hated everything about college. I hate my parents. They made me go to college. I never wanted to go to college. And I reached up and I took it off the wall and I ripped it in half. And when I ripped it in half, she doubled over on the couch she was sitting on in pain, crying and screaming. She said, "I'm crazy. Why'd you do that?" The next day she never had colitis again. We have things in our house that remind us.
So they're not just cardboard boxes that sit there and do
why,
nothing.
why walk in your house every day and the first thing you have to look at is something that reminds you of a horrible time or a horrible experience in your life? We need to get rid of this stuff. I mean, how many people listening to this have a box
So
of...
you're not telling people to live on futons and
No,
throw out their furniture?
But lighten it up. Get rid. I have seen so many healings. I saw one woman go from an asthmatic that couldn't get out of bed to the Olympic trials by getting rid of the horrible family accumulations in her house. I mean, most people's house is like some horrible antique shop, a museum of bad memories. Absolutely. And you need to get in there. I've gone in people's houses with a shovel to shovel out the debris. I know people that have these boxes that they've had for years thinking they couldn't live without them, and one of these days they're going to get in that box and clear it out. I tell those people, just throw it in the garbage. Get rid of it. And you know what? Anybody who's listening to this that does that will feel the healing. I guarantee it.
Tremendous. Now, Richard, I asked you this question a couple times, and your answer wasn't the one I expected from you. I said, what was the hardest thing for people to do on the program? And you said, you used to think it was doing the bowel thing, and then you used to think it was changing a whole diet, but then you realized it wasn't any of those, it was the life.
Yeah,
right?
Lifestyle changes. People willing to make dramatic changes in how they live their life, besides the bowel, besides the food program, like with the people that they associate with, or their place of business, or where they work, or changing their job. This is where people get the most stuck. And it may be the most toxic area of their life that's hurting them.
Not the food they're eating.
No, I mean, let's take a look at it. The #1 time for heart attacks in the United States is Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Why would that be? Because everybody hates what they do. And
Yeah, why would it be 9 o'clock?
Yeah, they don't want to go back to work. It's the most depressing time for them. They hate it. And hate hurts the heart just as bad as a high cholesterol diet. I mean, I've seen polls where they've polled thousands of people about their jobs, and everybody answered that they didn't like their job, that they would rather be doing something else. I mean, we have a culture in the United States of people that hate their job. They dread Sunday nights, looking forward to that Monday morning where they're going to get up, they're going to feel bad, and they can't wait till Friday. I mean, how is it so many people hate what they do? And many people cannot be well as long as 5 days a week.
They hate it.
They hate it. They hate their life. They hate what they do.
Maybe that's one reason I found in the letters, and I think you have. These people are so darn angry. Some of them they're horrible, the things they put in their letters. Like you say, they write a paragraph about my condition, and then they go, I hate the government.
Yeah.
I hate you because I didn't get well yet. I hate.
Absolutely. This whole file, we could say, is filled with hate mail. And it's not hate for us or against us. It's hate against medical doctors, and hate against the Veterans Administration hospitals, and hate against their personal doctor or whatever in their life, and then very little about their health. Hate is not a healing emotion. And remember, in the first tapes, I talked about love being one of the most powerful healing tools. Well, it would only make sense that hate and anger are the most powerful destructive, disease-creating tools. You have to let that go. You have to
forgive the doctors.
Oh, you have to
that.
forgive. You have to forget the doctors and forget the scars on your body and the organs that you don't have anymore, and how you've been ripped off, and how the doctors took all your money and what little was left the hospitals took from you. You have to forget all the pain and suffering, breathe, let it go, and start with today. Today is going to be the beginning of the new program. You have to let go of that anger.
I remember you telling me that these people, especially with neurological conditions, and maybe a lot of the others that don't know, you made them get jokes for you and then come in and tell jokes for you.
Absolutely, you know.
To prove that they really did change.
Americans, believe it or not, are one of the most serious groups of people there are. You know, I was teaching a group of medical doctors in a class over in Italy, and a very funny thing happened. Shortly after I began speaking, there was another doctor in the class, and he kept interrupting and telling a story. And after about 15 minutes of that, another doctor looked across the table and says, "Hey, why don't you shut up? Why don't you shut up? All you do is talk. We came here, we want to hear Dr. Schultz. All you do is talk." And I thought, oh my gosh. 15 minutes later, I saw those two men out in the hallway with their arms around each other talking. They blow off steam. If that would have happened in a class of mine in the United States, people would have called their attorneys on their cellular phones. I mean, this is slander in the United States. We're too serious. We need to learn to laugh and joke. You know, and just when we think maybe we're laughing or joking, we turn on the 6 o'clock news and watch 30 minutes of the most concentrated negativity in the world today. So I used to force my patients to learn jokes, and they thought I was kidding. And I said, I'm not kidding. Next week when you come in, I want you to tell me 5 jokes. I want you to make me laugh. And you know what? They couldn't. They couldn't.
Was it a struggle?
Oh, a struggle. It was
Stiff,
impossible.
mechanical,
They'd come in
couldn't do
next
it?
week and I'd go, tell me your jokes. And they go, I didn't know you were serious. And I go, well, tell me a joke. And they couldn't. They were horrible. They stumbled. I used to try to turn my patients into stand-up comics. It's a healing. We have to, even the Incurables program, you need to laugh during those 30 days. If you forget to laugh, I mean, let's face it, some of this stuff is funny. Hot and cold showers and screaming and high enemas and cold sheet treatments.
Would any of them ever work through it and get to be funny?
Oh, absolutely. You have to have a sense of humor. You have to love life. You have to laugh. Without that, you're not going to get well, or you're not going to get well as fast. Keep your sense of humor about this whole program.
Okay. Richard, one thing that I learned since we started this taping a year ago from my own experience was the topic of relapses. I think I was like anybody else. I didn't take them seriously. The stress of doing these videos and all, I ended up, as you know, with colitis and in bed for a month, and a doctor friend in Virginia said, no, you got to be real careful of relapses. Don't repeat the same habits that caused you to get sick like this. And you go, yeah, okay. You know, what's the point? And what I didn't realize is that relapses can be worse than the original condition, because I overworked again then in the spring producing some book, and the things that got me well in February didn't work, and it was much harder to get well. And then I got shingles from it, from all the stress. So I just want these viewers and readers out there, don't think it's nothing having a relapse, that you'll just go back on the program and you'll be out of it. You could be dead.
Definitely. I learned that well in the clinic with hundreds of patients. One of the things I've always seen is if they think it might be difficult to get rid of their degenerative disease or illness the first time, it's a lot more difficult the second
Why is
time
that?
and the third time. Because your body doesn't repair it. You're getting older in the process. You may be under more stress. And even though all the symptoms might be gone of the first illness, that doesn't necessarily mean it's gone all the way. You might feel better and look better, but it can take a few more years of really taking care of yourself to where you've really built up a defense system.
But in your mind, you're cured.
Oh, in your mind, you're cured. And you know, I've had hundreds of patients that have called me and they go, you won't believe it. And I go, what? And they go, my breast cancer's back, or this is back, or that is back. And I go, well, what have you done? And they go, well, and then they start telling me about all the ways.
Right?
They don't realize that these are programs. We're talking about changing a lifestyle for life, not 6 months, not a year. Now, I'm not saying we have to do the Incurables program for 30 years, but I'm saying that we're making good changes here for our future. If you want to have fun in the future, create new ways in your life to have fun besides beer and pepperoni sandwiches. I mean, these are programs that a person needs to follow for life.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's true because it happened to me. I didn't take the threat of a relapse seriously enough, then it happened.
Absolutely. In a relapse, it's almost like, imagine having scar tissue like I have on my hand, on your body, and cutting through that with a knife. It's a horrible thought.
So that's worse.
A relapse is an area of your body that's been beat up, that's been diseased. Your body has now healed it. You do not want to get sick in that area again. You get sick in that area again, you may not even be able to heal yourself.
I guess it's like people who go to the doctor and he says you take the antibiotic for 7 days, they feel great after 3 days, they, you know,
absolutely
forget the bottle.
And you know, there are many people that just stop in the middle of the process and don't really get well. I have 2 letters here from 2 different people with skin cancer. They have the same type of skin cancer in the same place. They do the same program, and midway through they have the same results. The same exact thing is happening to their melanoma.
What's your point?
The first person says, this is great, I must be getting better. And you know what happened? They kept it up and they got better. The second person says, I feel like it might eventually heal, but the cancer will still be there and in my body. That person quit the program, went to their doctor, and they still have cancer. Don't stop in the middle of the program. That will definitely cause a relapse.
Okay.
And then once you think you've healed yourself,
don't stop.
How about a couple more years of a great lifestyle, a good food program, periodic cleansing? Get real strong before you try.
In other words, when you
dangerous.
think you're out of the woods, you're probably not.
Absolutely. You probably need many more years of building up that strong, healthy foundation, getting your inner strength back. You'll feel it when you're there.
But it's not in 3 months.
It's not in 3 months. It's not in 6 months.
Okay.
It takes a couple years.
I got to know that.
That's right.
Another thing I want them to know, because I had to go through it myself, is like most people in natural healing, you don't like to take drugs. Just philosophically, you're against it. And that especially includes painkillers, because you go, well, I'm in natural healing. I can take it. I'll find a different way. Well, as you know, last several weeks, just from nerves and stress, I got shingles.
Yeah.
And it was so painful, you could just cry. And there's just nothing naturally that's going to touch it. Yeah. So I finally had a feeling, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. So I did. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Getting a night's sleep, and it just changed my antagonism toward painkillers.
Let's remember that what the doctors have for pain, the best they have for pain, are our herbs that they took away from us.
What do you mean?
Opium, all the opiate derivatives, codeine, morphine. This is the top things that any doctors have for pain. And if they don't give you the natural source, like codeine or morphine, they will give you a synthetic derivative of an opiate. Mm-hmm. So these herbs were put on this planet for a reason. These are some of the greatest gifts of nature. Sometimes it's important for you to not experience pain and to get a good night's sleep. There's nothing more powerful in healing than a good night's sleep.
Right.
And many times your illness or your injury won't let that happen. Now, I'm not talking about undiagnosed pain that you've like, I just want to get my pain out of here so I can go back to work.
Right.
You'll get really sick. You'll kill yourself with that attitude. But I'm talking about once you know what's gone wrong, once you're involved in fixing it, and once you're in an aggressive program of healing yourself, there is absolutely nothing wrong with some mild pain reduction. And there are many herbs that were given to us as a gift for that to happen. But in this country, medicine has taken them away from us.
So I would tell these readers out there, if you're in one of those situations, you have a good diagnosis and you're on this natural program, you're in a lot of pain, go to a doctor.
There's nothing wrong.
You will have no problem getting painkillers from a doctor.
Right. And then get out of the office fast.
Yeah. But you'll sleep. When you sleep, you'll heal. If you're up, I was up every night watching CNN.
Yeah.
There's
nothing more powerful than sleep. Many times after months of an illness, one good night's sleep can set you up into a whole new pattern where the disease is releasing itself and the irritation's gone and you feel better. I've seen many older people that have lived into their 80s and 90s with very healthy lives, and when you talk to them, they all say getting a good night's sleep is one of the most important things that they did all their life.
Oh, I found out through this. I'm never going to suffer with pain again thinking it's the natural way.
There's no herbal replacement for sleep, and pain relief is natural. There are, again, many plants that have been provided for us on this planet to use just for that put us into a relaxed state, let us sleep, and ease the pain. Unfortunately, politically, those plants have been taken away from us.
Right. But at least I want readers to know, keep yourself open. Richard, by the way, right in the beginning of these tapes, I don't remember where it was, but we were talking about that little 4-year-old girl with brain cancer, and you said it was in process. How did she do?
She died.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, it's an important part of natural healing that people need to hear on this tape. Dr. Christopher talked about the 3 types of incurables, and we've covered a couple of them. The last type of incurable was people whose time had come.
Right.
And the first thing we need to remember with natural healing and the incurables program and everything we've talked about is we're not trying to cheat death. the inevitable end for all of us is a physical death.
Okay.
We're not trying to cheat that, but we're trying to prolong our life and have a healthy life and feel good and have a good time and not have a premature death.
Right.
But there are people, and we'll all experience this, where the end is near and it's over.
Okay.
And this life is over. It was a wonderful story because her parents came to see me. Both her parents and both her grandparents made special trips to come and see me after her death, and they told me the most beautiful story.
What was it?
They said that basically she has started falling asleep, and so they had her in the living room on a massage table in the living room, and she started falling asleep more and more. They kept up with the programs, with the Incurables programs, and the pediatrician called and said, well, we need to, get you some pain relief because she'll be in a lot of pain.
Right.
And the steroids that they had given her had caused abnormal hair growth, and they had stopped the steroids, but that hair started going away.
Okay.
And some of the major spasms that she was having started going away, but she didn't come out of that unconsciousness.
Okay.
She slipped more into that unconsciousness.
A coma.
Slept most of the time, and this went on for a period of about 2 months. And the pediatrician kept calling and said, look, I know you're going to need me. And they go, well, she's fine. And he goes, isn't she in a lot of pain? And they go, no, she's in no pain. And they said, isn't she having massive spasms because that tumor is growing inside her brain?
So this is what's supposed to happen in a normal case.
The pressure of a tumor growing radically out of control in your brain will put such pressure on your brain.
You go berserk, right?
Oh, you go berserk. You go crazy. You're in massive pain. Your body goes into horrible spasms and convulsions. And he kept calling saying, do you need some medication for this? And they said, this isn't happening. Finally, one day she died, and they called the pediatrician, and he came over, and what he said so astounded him. He said he had never seen this before. He said that all the sutures in her skull plate had released and opened up to take all the pressure off her brain from that tumor growing. And he said he had never, ever seen this in the whole of his medical career. And this is what natural healing does. We're all going to die, but if you follow a program of natural healing,
it's going to be better.
It's going to be better. You're going to have what I would call a nice death or a pleasant death. So many people today, I don't know where we get this idea we're supposed to be born in a hospital. Who wants to have a birth in a hospital? And that we're supposed to die. Who wants to die with a group of paid strangers around you?
Right?
Absolutely.
That it can be a kinder death if you don't
drug up. I don't see kind deaths in the hospital. I see people with those type of brain tumors strapped to tables. Morphine doesn't even work anymore. And
so
for the last 30 days,
because they're jerking and everything?
The last 30 days of their life are hell on earth, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs 24 hours a day.
In spite of
this is a hospital.
In spite of the codeine and the morphine?
That's right. It just doesn't work anymore for these people. And that's because they've gone against nature. One of the greatest benefits of keeping yourself healthy and also following the Incurables program is if it is the end of your life will come and you'll have a smile on your face. You'll be with your relatives. You can share memories with your family. You won't be screaming, writhing in pain, vomiting, hooked up to tubes. I have 100 stories of the ends of people's lives and how beautiful it was, and the parties that they had at their house, and how they got to see their friends and their loved ones with a smile on their face.
So even if it isn't destined for them to have a healing, it still works.
Hey, at some point for all of us, we're going to get ill, and we're going to try to heal ourselves naturally, but we're not going to succeed. We're going to die. Our time has come, but the drastic difference is when your time has come and you're involved in a natural healing lifestyle and program,
it won't be that bad.
It won't be bad at all. It'll be a pleasant experience.
I think people need to know that.
Absolutely. So for any of those out there who feel like they haven't been successful, and maybe people feel like they haven't done it right, hey, take a breath, relax, put a smile on your face. We're all going to die. Again, we're not trying to cheat death. We're just trying to have a better life and a longer life.
An easier way out.
And if you die, you'll have an easier way out. It will be pain-free. You'll have a smile on your face. You'll probably just fall asleep. That's the way we should go.